folks sometimes feel like mentoring is scary and hard, and I don't want to sign up to be a mentor because I'm not an expert. But your experiences are things that another young person, someone new in their professional journey, can learn from. So we have looked at it as experience-based versus skills-based mentoring. So we're not necessarily focused on like, I want you to be the best coder you could be or the best finance manager you can be. Just the best person, best team member, best colleague, best self, in that. And I'm going to help you to do that by sharing my experiences, by being vulnerable, by telling you mistakes that I've made even. So that experience-based mentoring is so important.
Welcome to the People Powered Solutions podcast. In this show, you'll gain expert advice and tips on building a thriving workplace culture with happy employees. I'm your host, Lorianne Duguay, and I'm thrilled to be spending this time with you today. Hello, and welcome to another episode of a People Powered podcast. In continuing our series where we are showcasing the secret sauce, if you will, those practices, those unique approaches to engaging and empowering our people that companies are adopting across the globe, we are welcoming the CEO of Step Up, a nonprofit organization, Delores Morton. Welcome, Delores.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. We initially started this podcast where we would bring in a variety of experts, from communication experts to conflict resolution, conflict management experts to personality style experts. And then in recent months, we started to realize that here we are bringing all these amazing people in to impart some wisdom, expertise to our audience. But we started to wonder if our audience were thinking it was actually implementable. Is what they're saying actually operationalizing within the front line? So we decided to pivot, research, scour our resources to find companies that have in fact tried, tested, and true, been able to successfully create a culture where they not only attract that next generation of workers, but they are also able to keep them around. So before we deep dive into what Step Up is about and what Step Up has been doing relevant to empowering their workers as well as the next generation of workers, they're a little preview for our listeners of things to come. Delores, why don't you share with us how Delores got to doing what Delores does today?
Great. Thank you, Lori. Thanks again for having me. I'm looking at the logo behind you, People Powered Solutions. And it's interesting because that is what I basically spent my career doing. People Powered Solutions. How do people solve the most pressing issues that we face in the country, in the world? And so I've spent my entire career, how do we mobilize volunteers actually responding to that question? I started off with the nonprofit. President Bush had a speech that he talked about, for every problem we face as a nation, there is a person somewhere already doing the work of solving that problem. And so that's how I started my career, really focused on identifying those people, amplifying and getting more people to do that thing, whatever that thing was, whether it was teaching someone to read or helping in a disaster, all of those things. So that's what I've spent my entire career on, people-powered solutions and volunteerism, which brought me to Step Up, and an organization that I love. And Step Up is a mentorship nonprofit, and the people-powered solution that we are focused on is mentorship. How do mentors help young people to succeed in life, in their community, and in particular at work? How do their path to success? And that's what we do. So Step Up we focus on women and girls is our customer base. And we actually focus on primarily getting women and other women to mentor these girls. So to share their journey, to share their path, to help them along their way. So I get to lead this organization. I get to think about this work every day.
I love that you definitely see it as an honor and a privilege to be able to be involved in that work. And folks, one of the reasons we initially reached out to Delores is because in all our work with clients, as we're starting this transformation, this culture transformation, one of the key components that, regardless of the organization, will be part of our recommendations and will be some of the systems that we will help them implement and integrate into their day-to-day operations is mentorship. Why? Because if we think about the 10 needs that I often reference from the Happiness Factor from our book, we talk about the importance of clarity, the importance of relationships at work, as well as the importance of communication and learning and development. See, mentorship covers all four of those needs. So, in terms of bang for your buck, investing in a mentorship program really allows you to not only for example, for a newly seasoned, sorry, not a newly seasoned, that was very ironic as a comment, but for a new employee integrating an organization, it takes away that fear factor. It helps them feel supported and provides them a lifeline from a technical perspective within the organization, that in the event that they encounter a challenge with their role, with their responsibilities, they're able to tap that person on the shoulder and say, hey, not really sure how I'm supposed to contend with this challenge. How did you troubleshoot this in the past? How have you navigated these types of parallel issues in the past, and then be supported in solutionizing? So not only are you providing that level of clarity to the individual in terms of this is how we operate, this is how you troubleshoot this specific problem, but also you're giving them that ongoing support so they can learn, all the while feeling it's a safe space to ask questions, to communicate with their peers. So you're facilitating the relationships. You're also empowering them to step into their full potential by understanding and really curating what their learning needs are through that relationship, through that structured, formalized working relationship. So
Lori, I really like what you said about there, because for us, we call that experience-based mentoring, right? So it's folks sometimes feel like mentoring is scary and hard, and I don't want to sign up to be a mentor because I'm not an expert. But your experiences are things that another young person, someone new in their professional journey, can learn from. So we have looked at it as experience-based versus skills-based mentoring. So we're not necessarily focused on like, I want you to be the best coder you could be, or the best finance manager you can be. Just the best person, best team member, best colleague, best self, in that. And I'm going to help you to do that by sharing my experiences, by being vulnerable, by telling you mistakes that I've made even. So that experience-based mentoring is so important.
Absolutely. And normalizing mistake making and it encouraging it, nurturing it, because through those mistakes, or I don't even like mistakes or failure, I prefer to say non-successes. Through those non-successes, we're seeing
Learning
so much potential
opportunity.
for, you fail forward at the very least, right? And to be able to fail forward all the while being supported is game changing for a team, game changing for an organization and a company. So how about you talk a bit more about what some of those, I guess, the dynamics of that mentorship relationship and how Step Up facilitates it on an ongoing basis?
Sure. So Step Up does a number of things. I think, first of all, we have different kinds of mentoring programs. And I'll focus specifically on the young adults, the young women that we're working with who have just finished high school. They may be in post-secondary, so they may be in college. They may have gone directly into the workforce. Some of them may be trying to figure out what I want to do next. And that's why they come to Step Up for mentorship, right? So they're at different stages of their journeys. And what we provide for them is access to mentors. And so the mentors sometimes are from the companies that we work with, but they are also just women and or people who care about the journey and the success of other young women. And so we provide, one of the things that is unique to Step Up is we have a mentoring platform or approach called Flash Mentoring. And so the idea
that's one of the reasons I reached out, right? Remember, that's the first thing we talked about when we had our kind of fit check. I'm fascinated by the notion of Flash mentoring. So please do share with the audience a bit more about that.
Sure. And the idea there is so much sometimes people are hesitant to engage in a mentoring relationship. And one, it's because I'm concerned about how much time and commitment it's going to take, right? So that's the first thing. I'm concerned that if we agree to meet every week, that my work is going to get too busy and I'm not ready. And this is both on the mentor side and the mentee side. So both of them. So someone might be afraid to engage, to go and seek out mentorship for that reason. And on the other side, someone might say, I just don't have time to be a mentor, right? But if we start off with one conversation, so Flash Mentorship, it's one conversation. And if you think back, Lori, and all of your listeners, if you think back to your career, some of the most transformational moments in your lifetime, in your career success, have been the result of one conversation. And that conversation could have been with a colleague, it could have been with for me, it was with my grandmother, my father-in-law. So some of those most transformational career pivoting, career escalating moments were with just one conversation. They weren't with the mentor that I had for a year or 6 years. And so that's the premise of Flash Mentoring, is how do we enable those one-time powerful conversations with someone? And the way that we do that is by helping the young person first to identify, what is it I need right now? Right. And so we know that if I get what I need right now, then I'm going to use it right now. Right. So if my right now is, I had a bad performance review and I want to, go in and have a conversation about that. Can you, Lori, tell me about a time you had a bad performance review and you won it, and how did you handle it? How did you respond? Right. And it happened to me, and I went to someone I respected, and they told me that use this as a challenge to prove that you really deserve the job and you can do it. Don't let this diminish you. Help use it as a fuel and an empowerment. And I really did take that. And so it came to the place where now I don't want all A's on my report card. I want to give me something to work on every time, ever since that moment. And so it is exactly that one conversation, one time, and then you might come back to the same mentor, but you may go to multiple mentors. We need different mentors for different things. And so that's the idea behind Flash Mentoring, that it's low commitment, you're getting, and the young person is getting what they need when they need it. And so that's what we think is so powerful about it.
Absolutely. Low commitment and high value, right? Because you're absolutely right. If I'm okay with sharing, let's back up to your initial kind of example of, there was there's a collection, if you will, of moments, conversations, which led to a pivot. You referenced that one time that you had your bad performance review, and that you had one conversation. And not only did it kind of allow you to tackle that next conversation that was intimidating you, but also it enabled a mindset shift where you started to perceive that exercise, that performance evaluation, as a means of identifying those continuous improvement opportunities, right? So one conversation shifting a mindset. Imagine how game-changing that can be, listeners, for your organization by integrating a Flash mentorship type program or parallel, how you could be empowering some potential mindset shifts within your team members. But in my case, I would say it is a collection of different conversations that have acted as pivotal moments throughout my career and my personal life, to be honest. One of which, many of our listeners have heard me talk about how I worked for the same large scale organization for 21 years. And for 15 at least of those 21 years, I was completely checked out, disengaged, unhappy. And it was one conversation that inspired me to, and it was a super frank conversation. When I say, she was a peer turned manager, an amazing leader, inspiring mentor. And I had a conversation with her, and I guess I was ranting and complaining about how I would never see any growth within the organization because I worked in a satellite office, and that was it for me. And I feel like my brain was being wasted and I had no challenge. And she said to me really frankly, "Okay, Lori, that's it. I'm done." And I said, "Pardon me?" And in my head, I'm like, "Hey, are you talking to me as a friend here or as my manager? Because as a manager, that's kind of rude." And she's like, "I'm talking as both, because I'm going to be your reality check right in this moment.
Wow.
You have been complaining about being unhappy, being checked out. Your work is being done amazingly, but I know that you are not happy. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to wake up and decide, is this where you want to retire from?
Yeah.
Or is there a next chapter for you that might not include this organization?"
Wow.
And if that's the case, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you. And I was like, "Of course you don't. Thank you." But she said, if that's the case, you need to take the biggest little step you can take today to start working towards that exit. and start working towards that next chapter. And I was like, huh, ouch, but yes. And I remember leaving and just reflecting, and I wrote about her in my book, and I messaged her to say, thank you. That one conversation was so eye-opening for me that it made me say, enough of this complaining. If I'm complaining and not doing anything about it, then I'm not entitled to complain.
Ooh.
I need to decide here and now that I'm going to do something about it, because the only thing I can do is choose differently. So that's when I
Mm,
went back, did my
I
postgraduate,
get
started
that.
consulting. So it was one pivotal conversation. And even after that, I was consulting on the side, wanting to start my full-time business, had another conversation with someone saying, why don't you just go take a leap of faith? And it was like in the midst of the pandemic. I'm like, because we're kind of going through this global crisis, I'm not sure it's the most smart thing to leave a very secure job with, the golden shackles of a good pension and benefits. Not really sure that it's a good time. And she said, what are you waiting for? I said, well, I'm waiting to have developed this assessment tool and that program and this thing. And she says, how do you know that's what your clients are going to need? I said, well, I'm waiting for all my ducks to be in a row. She's like, who says your client wants their ducks in a row? You take
Wow.
your first contract, you take your leap of faith, and you figure it out as you go, and you grow and develop your content in accordance with what the actual needs are. And I was like,
Mm.
and here I am 4 years later doing it. So pivotal conversations. And I
Wow.
share this because they are those conversations that literally changed the entire trajectory of my career and made me decide that I deserve better. And what a wonderful opportunity. When you started out, you said, I get to be a part of this. I get to lead this organization. Imagine this flash mentorship. It's also investing in those mentors. It's giving them an opportunity. It's validating them, saying, we appreciate and value your knowledge and accumulated expertise. We think you'd be a great fit to mentor that next generation.
Absolutely. And one of the things that's happening with, in particular, that we're learning is we're building at Step Up a culture where young women expect mentoring when they get in the workforce. So they're getting mentoring, they're getting it in high school, they're getting it in college at the beginning, not through their companies necessarily, but through the resources that we provide at Step Up. And so they go into the workforce and, what do you mean there's no mentorship program here, right? And so there's also that. And so one of the things that's great about how Step Up does our work is every company doesn't have the capacity to build that mentorship program. And so we are able to bring mentors from other companies from across regions, industries, and the young women that we work with are accustomed to having multiple mentors, right? So they are building not just their skills and their knowledge and their competency, their confidence, but they're also building social capital. And so we know that mentorship helps to build social capital, and they're building new connections and relationships that they wouldn't have had ordinarily. And so we do think that that's also helpful. We talk about it as Step Up provides brave spaces. So spaces for brave conversations, not safe spaces, but brave spaces is so
Mhm.
important to us. And mentorship is one of those frameworks where bravery can come into conversations and you walk away feeling more confident. And we think that that is so important. And it's in particular important. We focus on women and girls, and we know that there's a confidence gap. And so that's one of the things that we believe mentoring is a solution to fill in that confidence gap. So
Absolutely.
that's it's
To
and
your
we
earlier point about, they've come to expect this, right? We always talk about feedback and how the younger generations, so basically your niche clients, right? They were raised in a world where they post a photo, they post anything, a little video, whatever it may be, they get instant feedback. So this is an entire generation who expects that continuous back and forth, that continuous feedback. They require validation of, you're doing this really well. I'm seeing room for improvement here. They're also a generation, from what you were just sharing, that they were conditioned through their former education, be it in primary, high school, post-secondary, to have a supported learning environment. So what
Mhm.
do you think is going to happen, listeners, if we throw them into a workplace where they are left to fend for themselves? I need to add the caveat of a job seeker's market where 1 in 4 of your existing employees are already shopping around. So they have a plethora of options in terms of where to work.
Yeah. Right.
They're left to fend for themselves. They're out,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right?
That's so
So
true.
that's going to just contribute to your eternal recruitment loop and never being able to have the capacity, the resources to actually bring that mission, that vision, whatever those strategic objectives are to fruition, because you're just going to be in this eternal recruitment and very costly, not to mention, loop of recruiting and having to backfill. How do you attract and keep those younger workers? You implement a mentorship program. So, Delores, could you share how Step Up works with companies as well as with young women? So I heard that you have your internal network of mentors that are from a variety of industries, and I guess you connect them. Is that what it is?
Sure. Yeah. So some of the companies that we work with their company may actually already have an internal corporate mentoring program for their employees, but their employees are also interested in cultivating a future workforce. So young people that don't already work there. And so we provide opportunities for employees to mentor young people outside of their company. And it's a great way for the young women to get to know that company, get to know people at that company, so they're able over time to build more relationships inside the company while they're navigating their journey. And so if I'm interested in, working in entertainment, and I can connect with a number of women that work at NBC Universal, or if I'm interested in the beauty industry, I can connect with mentors at companies like Kerastase or Too Faced Cosmetics or Benefit Cosmetics, because Step Up has created this way for those mentors to engage outside. And so this hour, we're looking at volunteer opportunities. Again, I talked about spending my career on people powered solutions, like how are people solving problems. And so it's very much engaged in mentoring of young people outside of their company. And
And with
sometimes their entry level workforce in the company isn't ready for an internal mentorship program. They need a mentor outside of the company because they are not ready to be vulnerable and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, help me. And so this is also something that they may not, that even the corporate employee mentoring programs may not have the capacity to serve as many young people as need the mentoring. And so we are another conduit, another source of mentorship for them.
I love that. And one of the things that I speak with more often than not, the companies, right? I speak with the employers who are struggling to fill their pipeline. They're struggling to get people through the door and actually get people in those different vacant positions. So what a really unique way of starting to fill that future pipeline with prospects and being able to almost get a working interview with them as they're starting to navigate, all the while being able to showcase to them right away that this is how we roll, this is how this culture is, and getting them excited and starting to plant that seed of loyalty, even if it's still on a volunteer basis at that point, because that seed of loyalty, if nurtured appropriately, will lead to them applying and being able to help fill your skills gap, right?
Exactly,
I,
exactly.
and
It's brilliant, right? It's
It's absolutely brilliant. And I'll be honest, you're talking about all these corporate mentorship programs as if they're a very common thing. What I've noticed is more often than not, there are some corporate mentorship programs, but they are limited to leadership development. So that future leader in the organization, that high performer, that high potential, they have access to those kind of unique developmental opportunities and those formalized mentorship relationships. But that new
entry
employee,
level program employee
yeah,
doesn't have that.
they
Right.
don't have it. They
Yeah.
don't. So I'm wondering, and if not, absolutely, it sounds like you guys already have a full plate, but do you also kind of consult and help organizations in understanding how they might want to start to implement? Or do you just provide, well, not just, do you provide immediately kind of those mentors for them?
We provide more immediate. So we aren't capacity building, teaching companies how to build employee mentorship programs. Typically, we're working with one of the employee resource groups at a company. So it might be the women's employee resource group. One of the companies we worked with, everyone, it was women who were working in cybersecurity. And it is a work that they wanted more women in that role, and they were having difficulty. And so by bringing a program like Step Up, they were able to expose young women like, oh, I never thought about cybersecurity as a career path for me. And so that's one of the ways that we're working with. It's typically an ERG or an HR team that is looking at, how do we want to have a more diverse workforce. So how do we find young women and young women of color? And so Step Up becomes their partner in cultivating the future workforce versus the internal workforce, but also helping their early entry level employees to access mentorship because they're not ready for, or the programs like you just talked about that are leadership development. They don't have access to those programs, but still need mentorship.
Exactly. But although you're not a teaching, let's be honest, they're going to witness the structure of the mentors that you provide. And
Right.
come on, folks, then you just replicate, right? It's about adopting that. It's evidence that these types of relationships lead to big results. And ultimately, it's about replicating that internally, what you've had the privilege of being exposed to through the support
Right.
of Step Up, right?
Well,
And
and
you spoke.
one of the other things we do for the companies is we provide a mentor certification. So we
Oh,
teach people how to be effective mentors. So we have a mentor certification program that was co-created by Step Up and the Center for Evidence-Based Mentoring at UMass Boston. So it developed with experts who've been researching mentoring for 30 plus years. And sometimes, and it's because mentoring, because it's so personal, and we encourage this authenticity and this transfer of knowledge and experience and expertise. Sometimes a mentor may do harm, may advise a young person, but it's based on their own privilege and their own experience. Whereas this young person can't do the same thing. Oh, well, you've been in your organization for 10 years. I can't do the exact same thing that you did last week. Right. And so we talk about those kinds of things, how to do no harm, how to enter relationships with curiosity and respect. We talk about recognizing and understanding your privilege. And so we go through a training to help people become certified mentors. And they're certified to mentor with Step Up, but then, it's a credential that you can share inside your company. I've gone through this training and, I want to be a mentor, to colleagues inside the company. But so it's actually additional professional development that we offer.
absolutely. And I think that's, again, maybe another one of the pitfalls of companies who do decide to implement mentorship. They don't train their mentors, nor do they have a bit of a selection process, so that you're not selecting. You said about some of the mentors might actually do bad things in the sense that they impart the wrong knowledge, or they judge, or they're not equipped to engage in that mentorship relationship. So it's important to provide them with the do's and don'ts, as well as this is what a successful mentorship relationship will lead to, and these are the kinds of results you want to keep looking out for, versus this is what it's not. You're not here to start talking negatively about the company, or you don't want to be creating this little cynical, kind of person before they even start. It's really about empowering them. And you also spoke of diversity, and I just want to touch on that because I think it's super important for organizations to recognize the value diversity brings to a team, right? You have the expression two heads are better than one. I don't know if that's just a French expression, but it's definitely a French. Is it an English one as
Yeah.
well?
Yes,
Good.
English as well.
Okay. Do you think the entire saying was predicated on both minds thinking the same?
No, absolutely not. It has to
Exactly.
be
It's about
right.
the value of diversity of perspective. So the more
Just one
diverse
head if you're thinking the same. So yeah, you need the diversity of
you need, that
perspective.
diversity of perspective. So if you are looking for diversity of perspective, and you are intentionally being strategic about how you're bringing that diversity in, mentorship is a no-brainer, right? When it comes to be able to get that access to, as well as access to competent well-trained mentors, from what I'm hearing, right?
Yes,
That's a bit of a
exactly.
nuance because not anyone can be a mentor, unfortunately.
So true. Sadly, even with the best intentions, just because you want to, we want to equip them. Because you can do harm, right? You
You
can
can.
do harm.
You can. Absolutely. So I think it's really important for organizations to recognize that if they are going to entertain the notion, and they absolutely should, as a side note, of mentorship and implementing mentorship within their organization, they need to ensure that there is a robust training program, as well as a bit of a formalized relationship to make sure that you're keeping both parties, the mentor and the mentee, accountable to that entire relationship and making sure that they're supported in navigating that relationship. One of the things that you talked about really quickly was about how you work with companies and that mentorship. There's that flash mentorship, but let's talk about maybe that longer term mentorship relationship. Maybe not the 1 year, but what might that look like and how Step Up works with organizations?
Sure. I think our other program is it's a short. It's still short term, so it lasts about 4 months,
Okay.
and it's 3 to 4 months with 4 critical conversations. And
Oh,
we kind of identify on the front end. You do what we have the mentors and the young people apply, and it is a matched program. So we will match the mentor with the mentee based on some set of common traits or interest. And we are doing this not through an algorithm. We are doing this sitting at a table with the applications, looking at who will be the best pair and get the most out of it. And we identify where is the young person at in their journey. Are they in a career clarity place, or are they in a career growth place? So where are they on their journey? So if they're in a career clarity place, then we equip the mentors with resources that are focused on career clarity. And it might mean after this conversation, you can give your mentee a specific assignment. And so it really is a curated help, a process where we are really helping the mentor to give the best direction and the mentee to ask the best questions, right? So
mm,
sometimes it's just even just putting two people in a room and thinking mentoring is going to happen isn't enough. We really do try to help both parties to get the most out of the mentoring relationship. And so that's 4 critical conversations that we want you to have based on where you are on your career journey in this 3 or 4 month period. So it's and we evaluate at every stage, right? So after each mentoring session, we are asking both the mentor and the mentee to tell us, how did that go? Did you walk away with a better understanding of where you are, or what you need to do, or your next steps? And so we evaluate it on continuously. So every session, and then we come back, 6 months later to find out, like, okay, you were in this mentoring program, as we call it, success coaching. So you are in this mentoring program for earlier this year. How did it go? Are you still using it? And what we found is the mentors come back like, yes, I want to do that again. And interestingly, the mentees will reapply. They want to come back and because they get to be matched with a new mentor, right? So
oh,
this is
okay.
again that they get to be matched with someone new. And what I needed in 2021 is not the same thing I need in 2023. So,
Right.
now I may have can't come in with career clarity, and now I'm trying to grow, and so how do I grow in my career? How do I deal with workplace culture and challenges? And so I'm in a different place. So I need a mentor who's going to help me based on where I am right now.
So it's
And
not a
that's
one
one
and
of the
done. It's
not a
not a
one
one.
and done. No.
It's as long as you need us, we're here, you come back. Do you also see mentees becoming mentors?
Yes, yes, we
That
do.
must be
And
so
that's our
rewarding.
life cycle. That we talk about the life cycle of a step up young person. And so we start as early as high school, and then we cut off at age 29 with the on the receiving end of mentorship. And so we hope that at 29, once they turn 30, they'll come back and they'll either start mentoring in high school, or able to mentor some young woman who's at the beginning of their journey, just finished high school as well. So yeah, it's good.
Amazing. Okay, so we have talked about that relationship, how you work with organizations. What does that ideal mentor, what's the profile of the ideal mentor, and how do they go about kind of approaching Step Up if they want to get onto your list of mentors?
Oh, great. Our ideal mentor is someone who is a woman or identifies with womanhood in some way. So I think that that's the first thing. We don't have an education requirement, so it's not whether you have these degrees or those things, but we do hope for people who have some professional experience. So experience in the workforce that they are willing to share and that they're willing to go through the training. I think that those are the things. So identify with womanhood, have some professional experience, and then finally are willing to go through the training. And so if you're willing, if those three things, then you're fine. And on our website, it's pretty simple. If you want to mentor, there is a button. You press it, you fill out the information, and we will channel you to the program that you feel best equipped to engage in. We have one that's just an app, right? So we have a mentoring app. So you can say, I want to be a mentor on your app. You can set your hours and say, this month I'm available, for 3 Fridays, and next month I'm not available at all.
Wow.
It works a little bit like a dating app. The young women look at the mentors and are like, hey, I want to talk to her. I love to pick her brain about what I'm thinking about from my career perspective. And you say yes or no, and it happens right there in the app. There's no exchange of contact information. So we love that. And again, it's built on evidence. We built it with a partner that has done research on mentorship. And so that's one of the best ways. But we have in-person mentoring events. So you can sign up for an event. If it's in your city. That coaching program that I just talked about, the more sustained 3 or 4 months,
Certification?
that one does require an application and an interview. So
Okay.
we want to make sure you
Well,
understand.
you're screening in those who are the most appropriate and will bring the most value to those prospective
Exactly.
mentees. Completely understandable. I love the flexibility that you afford the mentors, which I was already kind of privy to or started to think about when I seen that flash mentoring, because you acknowledge that some people find the concept of mentoring for a full year period a little intimidating because they
Mhm.
don't know life happens. They don't know what's going to happen in 4 months. So that in and of itself might prevent them from even signing up. But it sounds like the app, for example, or even the flash mentoring program, it can be a one and done in terms of I'm going to impart this and empower this next young woman. And I think as women, it's important for us to elevate others and to give back to others and help kind of help set others up for success. And Step Up is a conduit to bring that to reality, as far as I'm
Exactly.
concerned.
Thank you. That's
Um,
exactly what we strive to be. Thanks.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing and inspiring. And I love everything about what Step Up is doing. Thank you for providing that profile. One last little question just to clarify for our listeners, in case any of our listeners are women who want to be a part of it. So that training, what does that entail? You said who want to do the training, who identify with womanhood, who are willing to mentor, and then who want to do the training. What's that training about?
So we will go into a company. So if a company wants to mobilize its workforce to mentor, then we can go into a company and provide it internally. We have a video series that we provide, and then we have once monthly live trainings that are virtual. So once a month, live virtual trainings via Zoom, and just sign up for one, and we'll provide that provided there. So once a month, so lots of different ways.
Lots of variety, absolutely. So there is
Flexibility
absolutely
is the
no
key.
reason, yeah, no reason why people should not move forward and put themselves out there if they're looking to empower that next generation of workers, of young women. Thank you, Dolores, for agreeing to do this and to share the importance of mentorship, but also to share the wonderful work that Step Up is doing to enable organizations as well as young women to be exposed to opportunities that in the absence of Step Up, they may not have access to. So thank you for that. If people want to connect with you, how do you propose they go about doing that?
I think follow me on Instagram. I'm at Delores Jewels on Instagram. That's probably the quickest way. LinkedIn. So connect with me on any social. I'm pretty easy to find
There
if
you
you're
go.
interested. Yeah.
Perfect. And check out their website. They describe all of the different mentorship components and the different programs that they do offer. And make sure to click that button if you are interested in becoming a mentor, or if you know someone that you feel should be a mentor because they've done some great things or they've provided some great wisdom perhaps to you through one of those pivotal conversations.
Yeah.
Definitely direct them to that website to click on the button. One last nugget of wisdom. If there's one thing I could ask you to impart on our audience when it comes to everything we've just talked about, what would that be?
Step Up has focused our work on demystifying mentorship, for both the mentor and the mentee. And we just want to make it more accessible to more teens and young adults. And so I think I would leave everyone with the idea that you have something to contribute. You can make a difference in the life of a young person's journey. So don't be afraid to mentor. So we've demystified it. We've made it easy and clear, and you can do it. You can be a mentor.
There you have it, folks. Anyone can be a mentor. I said not anyone, but anyone who has something they want to offer, someone they want to empower. And whether you recognize it or not, it's not necessarily just technical. Your experience is of value. You can help save and help someone overcome a barrier that you in the past struggled with way longer than you had to. If you had a mentor to help you and coach you, why not be that mentor to that next generation?
Absolutely.
So thank you, Delores, for joining us. Folks, as I say every single week, I'm hoping that you've listened to our episode, you've taken a few notes, but ultimately that you choose one action you can take the minute we are done recording and you go out there and do that. Well, folks, thanks for joining us for yet another enriching conversation. To hear more about today's guest, make sure to check out the links in the description of this episode. Want to continue the conversation? Then head on over to our social media platforms, all of which are also linked in the description, to keep it going. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to make sure you don't miss another valuable episode.